All right, welcome back to the Dart language tour. Today we're going over in the functions area the main function. It is a special type of function in Dart. It's called the entry point. Let's talk about it and play around with it. So let's start by reading the docs. Every app must have a top level main function. Okay, every app, if it's going to be running Dart, if it's Flutter, it must have a top level main function. If it doesn't, it sounds like it's not going to work. Okay, and it serves as the entry point to the app. I can remember when I was learning Ruby about 3 or 4 years ago, I thought to myself, how does whatever is running my Ruby code, how does it know like in what order to do things if I'm putting my code in certain files and importing things and trying to create a program? How does it know to do that? And so thinking about Dart giving us this entry point, a very explicitly named function in which it's like the Big Bang or the catalyst, the thing that kicks off the rest of your program. Or for example, falling dominoes. It's the thing that kicks off. It's like the very first one, and then your program just keeps running. Okay, so main is like this first domino that falls. Okay. They go on to say, let's not do this second line yet because I want to show you some things. Okay, every program must have a top-level main function which serves as the entry point. All right, so if we don't have a main function, so instead of main, let's suppose we had pane. Does the analyzer care? It looks like the analyzer is not doing anything right now. Usually it would make a fuss. So let's try to run our pane program. This is in the web, so it tries to compile to JavaScript, of course. And it says error, no main method found. Compilation failed. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you have here. I mean, it could be literally nothing. Like what's going to happen here? It's still not finding the main method. Okay, so no main, no gain, right? Okay. Yeah, so that's what that means. Whatever your program is, even if your program is just to print hello world, you have to have this main function here. Okay, and so Dart takes everything that's in here, and in Flutter it starts by saying run app, and then you have your top level widget and all your nested widgets below it. That's how it's able to get to all of those. It gets kicked off in your main function. Okay, so it's a nice place to start, whatever your program is. Okay, the entry point as a concept is not a new concept. There's an entire Wikipedia page about it, and like it says, it's where the program begins. So it's a good logical starting point. Looks like Java also has a thing called main. C# has main. The C family has this thing called main, and I think Dart is in that C family in how it's written. So it also has that main starting point. Okay. The interesting thing here is that in the list of programming languages, they actually don't have a Dart example here. Okay. So if you want to be ambitious, you can come to this Wikipedia page and make an entry for Dart. Okay, so there should probably be one between D and Fortran, and show how Dart uses the main function as an entry point. Okay, and then that's how you can contribute to this open source world that we live in. All right, I'll leave that up to you. Cool. Okie dokie. Let's get on to this second sentence. The main function returns void and has an optional list string parameter for arguments. Okay, this I think is used for command line apps that take arguments. I haven't seen a Flutter app yet that takes a list of string arguments to parse using the args library. So this entire part right here I'm going to ignore. I'm just going to skip over it. Usually you won't define any parameters because again, this is in your Dart program, you are defining a main function and Dart expects it to be there. You're not actually ever going anywhere and saying like, if this thing is true, then return main, and you're gonna like call main or something like that. That doesn't happen. You really just define it as an entry point, and then all your logic goes in it, and Dart takes care of running all this stuff. Okay. An interesting point about the type. It doesn't have to be void. It could be an integer, for example. And what is it saying? Yeah. And you could say return 5. All right. Now it's not printing anything. I haven't said to print anything. It's literally just a function that returns an integer, and in this case, it's hard-coded to be 5. To me, this looks like a valid Dart program. I was able to run it. It didn't get any errors. The analyzer didn't complain. It compiled just fine. So this bit about the main function returns void, this might be what they're just telling us because this is a language tour. It's not necessarily like in depth going into main. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about that. There are some examples where, like, I think I've seen something like this, where you can have a future, like that, and with null safety turned on, you have to do something like that. And that's if main returns a future of type void. I have also seen something like this, where I think because maybe you're using await for some other function in your program, that you might have to insert this async modifier, and that's okay too. So I've seen that. I've seen future wrap this void. Just know that there are other ways to play around with this main function when you're writing your code. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that for now. Okay, let's look at some of these other interesting points about main. Does the main function need to be void, or can void be omitted? Okay, that was another interesting point, because in the functions we saw that the return type is optional. And here we didn't get any analyzer complaining about the return type not being listed. Okay, I'm just going to put that back for a second. There's some good points in here. If you don't put the return type, apparently it returns dynamic. And the way we can see that is if we print main dot runtime type. Okay, so this is a the function main returns void. If I change that back to an integer, okay, maybe that won't run. Yeah, let's do it. Oops. Let's do that. Okay, so that's a return type now. What if we want it to be, I wonder if void can just take that. Is that a thing? I don't think so. Dynamic. Okay, so there's my return type like that. Maybe I want to say instead of dynamic, it's just an object. Oop, looks like you can't do that. A non-null value must return since the return type doesn't allow null. What if I did that? Okay, now that's a different return type than regular object, and it can allow null, so that's fine. Okay, so that's kind of cool. I've never seen, can you declare null as a return type? I don't think so. So I think that's nonsensical as well. So those are some cool things you can do. What else? And I learned about that runtime type here from James. Thank you. Looks like there's a lint where you can say always declare return types. So if you remove that like I did earlier, it'll yell at you. Okay. All right, that's all I wanted to show in there. Okay, here's another example. So I have a regular counter app. This one just uses provider. And I wanted to show, because I think, yeah, I can like hot reload, hot restart, and I'm just running this in in a browser. Okay, so it's just a working counter app. Okay, I want to point out the difference between the function named main and the file named main.dart. You can name this to whatever you want. In Android Studio, which is the IDE I use, you might use VS Code, there's a way you can specify the Dart entry point. Okay, so I did edit configuration, Dart entry point, and you can say what it is here. So it doesn't have to be, I don't think, in lib main.dart. That's just a convention that we use. So for example, I'll rename this. Let's just call it QWERTY, QWERTY.dart. When I hit refactor, this main.dart entry point up here, I think it's going to change. Okay, so there it goes. So now my entry point is still the main function, and that's all that Dart cares about. This QWERTY.dart, I don't think it cares about it, you know, because all this stuff, once you import and expand all of this, it could really just live in this one file. All of these things, the model, the pages, everything, could just live in one giant file. So again, it doesn't matter what the file is. As long as Dart finds that main, it's going to go get everything else. Let's stop and restart, and just to make sure that when I rename this file, that everything works as it's supposed to. So it should be spinning up. And I want to point out that this is a very real concern for new developers. This is something that you can get tripped up on if you think, oh, I need this main thing, and you're not really thinking like, what's the difference in a function and a file. So this person was new to Android Studio and Flutter, and they got that error that says entry point doesn't contain a main function. And then, you know, the answer, of course, is to define that main function. And this is typically what it looks like in Flutter. Okay, you got to have that main function. So it sounds like they had the main file, but they just didn't have the main function defined. See, the main file. Okay, so don't let that trip you up, and that is a real thing. Let's see if my app is loaded. No, waiting for a connection from debug service on Chrome. Okay, I guess we'll just keep waiting for that. So Very Good Ventures, this outfit here, you may know about their command line interface, the CLI that they have for generating applications. One of the things that's nice about what they do is they have what's called build flavors. So that's when you're making your app and you're running it in certain environments, your local machine, staging environment, like with continuous integration, CI/CD pipeline, like you might have main staging, and that'll take maybe some environment variables, go into that file, and then finally what you're releasing, maybe you have some credentials that are production level credentials. You don't want to use your Firebase test version, you want the real version with your users. This is the file that you may run to target production. Okay, so again, the main.dart is a convention, but in Flutter there are these things called flavors about which environment you want to target. Okay, that's why they have that target flag -- target. So you can name it whatever you want: main staging, main development, main production. It's a really good thing. Okay, and finally, I don't know that this is going to reload. And let's try it one more time. See what happens. Yeah, so what I did is I did a flutter clean and then a pub get from pubspec.yaml. So now it is launching QWERTY.dart that contains my main function. And specifically for Flutter, you also have this run app thing. All right, good luck. Look, there it is. Cool. Is it working? Yeah. Just a little laggy and stuff. Okay, cool. There it is, QWERTY.dart. We did it. Yay. Okay. So that is that. You might have to do a Flutter clean maybe if you change the configuration. Otherwise, that is it for the main function. We will see you next time on functions as first class objects. See you then.